You can do more than 13 push-ups. You can do more than 80 push-ups. You can do it more than 100 push-ups. A lot of people in the business world that are successful have gone through a crucible and they learn to push their mindset a little bit further. And the people that know that in the business world, they don't make excuses. They just go get it. It's already done. The biggest lie was people said that it was going to be hard. It's not hard. You just go out and do it. That's the biggest trait that I see a similarity in the highly successful officers that I worked with and enlisted leaders that I worked with, as well as the corporate leaders that I work with. There's no such thing as the great man theory. I am walking every day and I want to walk every day. Hey, we're making small progress. We're making a small change that ripples through the business thing.
Cory Myres knows how to give you a competitive edge. As a former Army veteran, then turned business advisor, he has the expertise to help you achieve your goals. He boosts your performance and efficiency as an individual or a group. He shares his wisdom in his newsletter, Climb Higher. Cory, when I think of Army, I think of these classic movies like Saving Private Ryan, Dunkirk, Platoon, Windtalkers. It gives me this sense of justice, this sense of brotherhood. How did your story begin? Why did you choose to start off with the Army?
That's a fantastic question, Jerry. And, I had always thought that the military might be a career choice for me throughout my childhood. And at a certain point, I was sipping coffee in the office and I was watching the news early on in the morning. It hit me that there was an incident where several soldiers and many children had died because that someone didn't like the soldiers handing out candy at the time. And so not to get too deep into that story, but it kind of lit a fire. And I immediately went to the recruiting office and signed up. And, I hear a lot of stories like that from my brothers in arms, whether I served with them at the time or I've met them afterwards. A lot of the soldiers have those types of stories like, hey, I saw this happen and I was kind of spurred into action. And I think that that's important to realize that with the United States all volunteer army, that's usually how it kind of gets started is someone does something and we see it on the news or we hear about it through the news somehow. And we kind of get into action. From there, I signed up to be an aviation operations specialist and worked with the Air Cav. We did multiple missions across the southern border, helping the U.S. Border Patrol. And then I ended my military career or my full-time military career in Afghanistan in the Regional Command East, where I and my counterparts led an office planning all of the aviation missions for Regional Command East, including some of the more famous battles now. Battle of Kamdesh is the big one. So we were involved in that with the aviation assets throughout.
Holy cow, sounds like a lot of patriotism was involved. And thank you for your service. What are some of the life skills that you took from the Army that you put into your daily life? What has been the most helpful?
Absolutely. Probably, some of the top three, I would say, are the discipline and the wherewithal to do your own thing is number one. So, we were told as soon as we got to our unit that This unit was a little different. So the 7th, 17th Cav was reflagged from Fort Bragg to Fort Campbell. And if the audience is familiar with the two different 101st and 82nd Airborne do not like each other. They're rivals. We're all on the same team, but we're rivals. We fly different banners, and this is, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the 49ers or whatever you want to say. I say that because the Super Bowl was those teams, but so we came there and they immediately said, you're different and we have a different mindset here. And so they wanted us to go from A to Z without any instruction. And so we learned to do that. And that was something that was really, really important to us. Number 2 is top cover. And we saw that through my master sergeant, Perez. She came in and we called her the Bulldog, lovingly, of course. But she was tenacious and she covered us. And she said, no, these are my soldiers, when other sergeants and other leaders tried to come and snag us to do some weird duty. But she really gave us a bubble of protection and said, we're going to do this. We're going to do this at a level 11. And we're going to stay doing this. And this is our job. This is our focus. And it allowed us to see that this was the way right looks like. And then when she left, it was a contrary vision, right? So when she left, we didn't have that same leadership style. And it was evident. It was very evident. And number 3 is the grit and the tenacity to just keep going. We learned that you can do more than 13 push-ups. You can do more than 80 push-ups. You can do it more than 100 push-ups. And you can push your body and your mind further than you think you can go. That is, we've numbered them from, let's say 3, 2, 1 here. This is the number 1, is you can go further than you think you can.
Wow. It sounds like your mind is only the physical barrier that you have to get through before you can achieve this whole lot of awesomeness. One of the burning questions that I have, you work with a lot of people in the Army and also in the business world. How do you manage group conflicts?
Group conflicts really have, in the military, there is a structure and there is hey, this person's technically, they are in charge. And there's 2 different in charges in the world, right? There's personal power and there's positional power. And personal power is the popular kid in school gets the homecoming king. And positional power is I'm a sergeant, you're a private type power. And, that can only get you so far. You have to use personal power to really lead. And so when you're dealing with interpersonal conflict or group conflict, you have to reflect back on, okay, what's going to be the emotional element going on here, and how can I get over that mountain or around that boulder or whatever. So it's problem solving, just on a little bit different of a stage, but it's still problem solving. So when you look at, hey, this group wants this and this group wants that, there's always a compromise. There's often there's a middle ground that if you just write down the problem, what was it? Kydland's law. If you can write the problem down clearly, then the matter is half solved. And I think that is probably the most important step is, hey, let's write it down. Let's figure out what everybody wants and let's solve the problem from that angle.
Wonderful advice. So what are some of the similarities that you saw between the Army and the business world?
I see a lot of successful people that I met in the military and successful people in the business world share a lot of the same traits. And what I mean by that is that these people that are successful in the Army, it's a career choice just like any other. And if they've got the skill to navigate the complexities of a corporate hierarchy, then they've got the skill to be in the military and attain a high rank, right? So those two things, they reflect each other. That success, number one, is grit and determinism. Hey, I'm going to do this. This is already happening. I'm just going to, the people that pass Navy SEAL school will always tell you, I just was at the school. I went through the school. That's it. I went through BUDS, and I knew that I was going to get through that. That was the thing, is we're just going to get through it. The people that go in to BUDS and fail out, they'll often reflect back on saying, hey, I just didn't think the right way, or I didn't have that right mindset to get myself through that, or a medical issue, right? So when you do that in the business world, and you'll see this a lot of people in the business world that are successful have gone through a crucible, and they learn to push their mindset a little bit further. Like I talked about with the push-ups, you can always push yourself a little bit further and a little bit further than you think you can. And the people that know that in the business world, they don't make excuses. They just go get it. It's already done, because we're just going to do it, right? And there's a lot of little movie quotes and quips that we can go into. The biggest lie was people said that it was going to be hard. It's not hard. You just go out and do it. And that's the biggest trait that I see a similarity in the highly successful officers that I worked with and enlisted leaders that I worked with, as well as the corporate leaders that I work with. And the opposite is true. If you don't have that determinism and you don't bring that special, I know that this is going to get done kind of attitude, then it's not going to get done. There's going to be excuses, and you're just, probably not going to succeed as a business owner or entrepreneur as well as others.
So what prevents people from becoming high performers? How do you drill in that mindset of determinism?
Yeah, it really has to, I think there's a little bit of a balance, and maybe a Pareto principle 80-20 rule here. But, I believe that most of it can be trained and most of it can be understood, but some of it has to come from the person. So I would say 80% of this can be environmental. You can train, you can learn, you can experience things, and 20% has to come from your personality. If you don't have that little bit of grit, and you just always are kind of down and out, and you've got 0% grit, right? You're just, that 80% is not going to do much for you. But I'll tell you, you can train yourself. You can learn how to become a high performer through experiential learning, through just book learning even, and through your environment. And you can become, there's no such thing as the great man theory. The theory exists, but there's no such thing as it. You can always learn to be a leader. You can learn, different techniques for leadership. You can learn different techniques for management, and you can bring that grit and determinism in after getting some success and saying, oh, I pushed myself further and it worked. Oh, I pushed myself a little bit further and it worked. Oh, I went a little bit further than I thought I could and it worked again. And that really encourages that mindset.
Well, wow. Okay. This reminds me of the book Atomic Habits, and there's this 1% rule. If you do better 1%, you do better in a whole lot in 1 year. So what is the mentality that you want to pass down to your listeners? How to survive in any circumstance?
Always take data as your main priority. And you can survive any circumstance if you can gather the data and make a decision based on the data. And what I mean by that is whether it's two people arguing the data, if you take the emotion out of it, the data can probably solve that problem and that argument. And when you go into business and you scale that up, like you said, the atomic habits, guess what? I'm doing the atomic habits for one of my New Year's resolutions. I'm not running anymore. My knees are no longer working like that, but I am walking every day, and I want to walk every day, just a little bit, maybe to the mailbox and back, and maybe around the block, maybe all the way down to the gas station, which is a 2-mile back and forth, or maybe around the whole neighborhood, which is a 4-mile trek, or maybe even further. But at least every day I'm walking half a mile. And so let's scale that up into the business world. So we took it from an argument to a small habit, and then now into the business world. If you improve something every day and you really look at, hey, we're making small progress, we're making a small change, that ripples through the business thing. I'll tell you a story about a brewery that I was working for. And they had a piece of tape on their canning line. And it was a big yellow piece of duct tape. And I said, what is this tape for? Because it looked like it was indicating something. So it didn't have any writing on it. It was just there. And I said, what is this for? Is this just a random piece of tape? What's going on here? And they said, that's the 12th can. Well, we're in Texas, and the Aggies have the 12th man, which means the 12th player on the field is the audience of the Texas A&M Aggies. And so I said, so like the Aggies has the 12th man, this is the 12th can. And they're like, no, that's not what it is. They have to pull the can. They have to pull the 12th can every time because the machine is calibrated in such a way it's off kilter. So that 12th can is going to get crushed and spew beer everywhere, and they're going to have to shut down the machine and clean it. So they have a person stand there while the canning line is on and pull it every time. That little change by recalibrating the machine may cost you a little bit of money upfront to have someone come in and calibrate it, but you're not paying for that guy to stand there and pull the can every time. So now he's free to go do something else. That was a little tiny change. And we extrapolated that out to be multiple thousands of dollars in saved revenue and productivity. And you do that one day, and then maybe you do something else the next day. And before you know it, you've got $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 in saved productivity, which means you're producing more for the audience that you have. Your capacity is growing, and that turns into millions of dollars, either year over year, or even some of the clients that I work for, we save them or earn them more revenue in the ranges of $5 million and $10 million a year. So those little tiny changes all add up, and they're all cracks in your foundational principles. And really, it becomes very noticeable when you do what I do.
Wonderful. I think that's a good key takeaway as well. Recalibrating, whether it's a machine or your body, you're going to see a lot of improvement, lots of productivity. Thank you so much, Cory. It has been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jerry. I am very, very honored to be on your podcast.